Hello everybody and welcome back. This is part 2 of If I Owned California's Great America. If you have not seen part 1 yet, please go watch that video now before you watch this one. You can find that video down below in the description or up here in the top right corner of the video. If you are caught up, perfect. Then let's get back into it. This is If I Owned California's Great America. Enjoy the rest of the video. But first, if you like drum covers, you'll love my other channel, Home Plate Drums, which just so happens to be my main channel these days. Make sure you subscribe to me, and also don't forget to follow me over on Twitch. To begin this video, I want to talk about a very minor detail involving this bridge. I could be wrong, but I want to say that this bridge used to have a canopy over it, like the one between the two sections of All American Corners and the one between the Corners and Planet Snoopy. Regardless of whether or not this bridge did indeed once have a canopy over it, I'm gonna go ahead and give it one. So with that being said, it's time to cross over that bridge into what is currently Planet Snoopy. When the park opened, the original name for this land was Yukon Territory, but this land will now be themed partly to the piers of San Francisco, and will now be known as the Shoreline Piers. Now, as for this kids area, which was once Kidsville, well, I've got some ideas on how I want to retheme the area, but I'm not sure which theme I should pick. But we'll talk about that in a few moments. In the meantime, let's start by talking about the major rides that would make up the Shoreline Piers. Well, actually, before we talk about that, I first need to mention that the South Bay Shores, as a water park, will still be part of the park, but it's going to be relocated to the other side of the Screaming Serpent. And we'll also be getting a slight name change. You see, Fremont is part of the East Bay, so the name South Bay Shores is inaccurate. So, it's just going to now be known as the East Bay Shores. Plus, all the slides and whatnot will be retaining their current names. Next, we're going to talk about these 3 rides in the back section of Planet Snoopy, which was the original area of Planet Snoopy. These rides include the Great Pumpkin, Sally's Love Buggies, and Woodstock Express. It also used to feature a water maze right here where these picnic tables are, but that was removed some time back and I do not remember right off the bat when. Now, under my ownership, Woodstock Express, you can kiss it goodbye. As for Sally's Love Buggies and the Great Pumpkin, well, I'm going to keep them, but move them into the Kidsville area to replace Great Skate. So we'll talk about that again momentarily. So now that we've got this huge plot of land with nothing on it, what's next for this little area? Well, I'll tell you what's next. A new go-kart track, that's what. So yeah, this is where the go-karts are going to end up moving. And they'll be racing on a redesigned track, which would now be named the Shoreline Circuit. Next, take a look at this swampy area. There was once a log flume here called Loggers Run. It once interlocked with another flume ride called Yankee Clipper. Both rides were 1976 originals. Why does Gurney have to be the park keeping all the OG rides? Anyways, my plans bring back the log flume to this area. One from, I guess, Intamin, preferably with that circular station, and would also partially be a dark ride, to now be called Loggers Mountain. The bulk of this ride takes place in the spot where the wave pool currently is, and the scenic railway would go through the mountain, a la Disneyland and Splash Mountain. Or I guess nowadays Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Hidden off to the side of the Sierra Creek Lodge is a Husk breakdance called Peanuts Pirates. I'm actually going to ship this ride off to another Cedar Fair era park, for during that same trip to the Husk Rides website, as mentioned in part 1, I also discovered that they now have a bigger version of their breakdance ride, so I'm actually going to bring that in and it's going to be located somewhere else within the park. So stay tuned for more details on that. Now, as for the land that Peanuts Pirates once occupied, it's been a struggle to find a new ride to put in its spot. And I don't really want to use that space as more seating for the restaurant because that's boring. The best idea right now that I have is a Zamperla Nebulas, and I can't really find a good name for it. The best I have is Compass Crusaders. Generic versions of this ride have this thing in the middle of each arm that to me looks like a compass, so yeah. But at the same time, the biggest question I have is this ride too tall? Will it interfere with the Skyliner? According to the Zamperla website, this ride is 33 feet tall, and I'm just hoping that's not too tall. And now back to the swamp area. Along the boardwalk, there once was an inverting pirate ship here called Endeavor, formerly Revolution. This kind of ride seems to no longer be in production, so at the very least, I'm going to get a regular pirate ship in here, this one from Huss, and we're going to call it Yacht Rock, named after the music genre of the same name. And now it's time to talk about the kids area. As mentioned earlier, Great Skate is gone, and Sally's Love Buggies and the Pumpkin Patch are taking over in that spot. So now let's talk about the new theme for the land. I had 3 ideas in mind, and for the longest time I really did not know which one to go with. Do I go with the Amazing Digital Circus? Do I go with Monopoly? Or do I get clever and theme the area to the defunct Playland at the Beach in San Francisco? At this point, I'm figuring if I'm going to get the rights to make a Digital Circus ride in Carousel Square, I may as well retheme the kids area to the Digital Circus as well. And so the land will now be themed to the Amazing Digital Circus. And the remodel would be as follows. Character Carousel becomes Kinger's Chess Set Carousel. Lucy's Krabby Cabbies becomes the Amazing Digital Coaster. Flying Ace becomes Kane's Flying Bus. Sally's Swing Set, wow, that's a lot of S's there, becomes Gangle's Ribbon Swings. Peanuts 500 becomes Ragatha's Ragdoll Whip. The Planet Snoopy Construction Zone becomes the Digital Circus Construction Company. Snoopy's Space Race, which by the way is that other 1976 OG ride that we have but Gurney doesn't, now becomes Bubble Squabble, a reference to the Mario Party 10 minigame of the same name. The Joe Cool Dodgems becomes Jack's Demo Derby. The Pumpkin Patch becomes Gloink Tower. The Kite Eating Tree, well, this ride is now themed to Pomni, but I can't really find a good name for it. The best I've got right now is Pomni's Bounce Tower, but to me that just sounds ridiculously stupid. So if you have a better name, leave it in the comments. Snoopy's Space Buggies becomes Candy Carrier Chaos, a reference to episode 2 of the Digital Circus. And finally, Sally's Love Buggies becomes Zooble's Abstract Buggies. There's one more thing I want to mention before we move on. I think we can all agree that the Sierra Creek Lodge is very much out of place in a land themed to the piers of San Francisco. But luckily, I do have a new landing spot for the lodge, and it's coming up next. In the meantime, I'm going to snatch the Pier 76 Cafe from South Bay Shores and move it to where the lodge currently stands. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's quickly recap the major rides of the Shoreline Piers. They include a newly designed go-kart track called Shoreline Circuit, an Intamin flume ride called Loggers Mountain, a Zamperla Nebulas called Compass Crusaders, and a Huss pirate ship called Yacht Rock. Very good, now let's cross over the bridge from Planet Snoopy into the back section of All American Corners. The land that the water park once occupied is joining together with this back section to create a brand new land that'll be themed to the beautiful natural side of Northern California, with redwood trees dominating the skyline. So, this land is called Sequoia Forest. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and kick things off here by talking about Delirium. Fans of this ride, I'm sorry to say this, but I'm going to go ahead and ship this ride out. Maybe Discovery Kingdom would be interested? I mean, they've yet to bring in anything to replace Tasmanian Devil, so yeah. Now, if I still have room to bring in a new ride to replace Delirium, I'm going to go ahead and put up a Mondial Top Scan, or Ventura according to the website, that I call Lawnmower. You know, this entire ride gives me some major vibes of a lawnmower, which is why I've chosen to name it as such. Now, you may have heard me say the word if. I will explain myself in just a few minutes, but first, let's move next door and talk about the 4D Action Theater. The plans I have for this building are ginormous. They involve not only the departure of Mass Effect New Earth, but also the attraction as it is right now. And the plans that I have involve a brand new ride that I call the Golden State Flyover. Anyone who's ever been to California Adventure or Epcot surely knows about Soarin' over California, now Soarin' around the world. But did you know the company that made Soarin' also has a widely enhanced version of that very ride, known as Flyover, with locations in Las Vegas, Chicago, Vancouver, Toronto, the Mall of America, and even a location in Iceland. The technology on Flyover is far superior to that of Soarin'. Somebody once compared the original Soarin' over California to the original iPhone, while comparing Flyover to the latest iPhone. And let me tell you something, when I got to experience Flyover in Las Vegas for the first time, I was in complete agreement with that review. Now, this incredible flying experience would take place over this half, the northern half, of our beautiful Golden State, seeing places like Yosemite, Monterey, Santa Cruz, Napa, Redding, Tahoe, Alcatraz, Point Reyes, the Palace of Fine Arts, downtown Sacramento with the Tower Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, the Oakland Zoo, and many other major sites before finishing with a flight over California's Golden Valley. And this, my friends, is why I said if earlier. I might have to expand the entire building onto the spot where Delirium currently is, just to accommodate this attraction. A complete flyover experience, at least in Vegas, takes about 25 minutes, going through 3 separate showrooms. Do I have the room to do all of that with how the Action Theater currently is? Possibly, but I can't be completely certain. The rest of the rides here in Sequoia Forest are located within the current boundaries of the water park. And remember, with no water slides or playgrounds here, we've got a completely blank slate to work with, aside from the 2 restaurants which are staying. But before we start talking about the rides, I first want to address the entry points into this land. I've got at least 3, maybe 4. The first point of entry is the current one and only entry point into the water park, which is across the way from Delirium. The second point of entry utilizes this bridge where Endeavor once stood. And the third point of entry is over here close to Pacific Surge. It'll be another bridge over the Loggers Mountain flume, and it will hook up to the Shoreline Circuit. As for the potential fourth point of entry, you see this area right here between these 2 gift shops? Well, there once was a walkway here until Cedar Fair, of course, plugged it up. So I could bring it back, but my big question is, will it interfere with a ride? I'll explain myself in just a few moments, but first, it's time to start plugging in all these empty gaps with rides. Let's get it. We're going to start by filling in the land that Pups Pier currently stands on. My master plan is to move the orbit out of All-American Corners to now call the forest home. Orbit has never moved since opening with the park in 1976, so this is the first time that this ride has changed locations within the park. The new theme for this ride is one that is a reference to the beautiful purple sunsets of California. Yes, my friends, Orbit will now be called Purple Sunset. Next up is the Otter Trotter. I'm not sure if the Skyliner is going to pose any challenge to my plans, but I came up with the idea to move the drop tower here. It's going to move to this land regardless, but it's the location that I'm trying to determine. If I can't place drop tower here, maybe I'll just put up a fountain or something. A little decoration never hurt. Quick side note, I did also have the idea of moving the Flying Eagles to this particular spot, but I've switched up my plans, and now it's in another location further back in the land. Stay tuned for more information on that. And then we've got this area, which is where I would like to move the Psycho Mouse to. Some small changes would have to be made to the terrain to accommodate the mouse, but I am certain it can be done. With the water park no longer being in this particular area of the park, there's no need to keep the building that is the lockers and changing room. The building will be rebuilt in the new water park, and if need be, this is where Drop Tower will go. You know, actually, come to think of it, I think this is going to be the better option. So we're going to go with that. Drop Tower will take over for these lockers and changing room. Otter Trotter will in fact be a fountain, which means this pathway will open back up. And speaking of pathways, you see this area right here? Well, I'm going to go ahead and open that up. It's going to be another pathway connecting the land even more. Alright, before we move on to our next ride, I want to quickly mention that the Pier 76 Cafe will become the new Sierra Creek Lodge. So basically, both restaurants are just swapping places. So with that being said, let's move on to our next ride, and actually we got to go to the very back of the land for this one. As I mentioned in part 1, I'm going to be swapping out the old gas-powered cars from Barney Oldfield for new electric cars from... It looks like Chance Rides doesn't make the car ride anymore? What? Okay, fine. Guess I'm going to have to go with Zamperla's U-Drive. It looks to be electric, if I've done my research correctly. You know, for the longest time, I was going to give this car ride the new name of Forest Cruisers. But something just recently, and I don't know what it is, but it told me to abort that mission and stick with the current Barney Oldfield's Redwood Rally name. And so, I have decided to do just that. I'm not exactly the best at mapping out how a car ride would work, but here's my basic idea on how I envision this car ride working. This red line is the track, the gray line is the station, yellow is the bridge over the track, green is the railway, purple is the pathways. Moving on, our next ride is taking over for the Lazy River. What kind of ride could it be, you ask? Well, the answer to that question, my friends, is Gold Striker. And my master plan involves incorporating authentic Humboldt's Redwood into this coaster, which would make the new name for it the Redwood Chipper. In this example picture that I put together in Photoshop, you can see that the scenic railway would go under the roller coaster at around the same spot where Star Tower currently is. And by the way, you might notice that there is a little bit of space right over here where I could put another ride. And I have chosen for that ride to be the Flying Eagles, which would now be known as the California Condor. Fun fact, or maybe not so fun fact, depending on who you ask, my original plans called for a Batman clone that would have had that exact name, California Condor, to be placed in the exact same spot as Six Flags Great America. But I eventually realized that the Skyliner is likely in the way, So I had to scrap that idea, and that actually works out for the better because now I can name Flying Eagles California Condor. It was a real struggle to find another bird to name it after, but luckily, now I have one. Yay! Remember that Breakers Bay is now the show building for Loggers Mountain, so that's going to do it for the Sequoia Forest. Once again, this land includes a flying theater from Dynamic Attractions called the Golden State Flyover, and if room permits, a new Mondial Top Scan called Lawnmower, and inside the water park area, Purple Sunset, formerly Orbit, Psycho Mouse, Drop Tower, Barney Oldfield becomes the electric Zamperla U-Drive instead of the gas-powered cars. We've got the Redwood Chipper, formerly Gold Striker, and finally California Condor, formerly Flying Eagles. Okay, and now let's cross one more bridge into the front section of the All-American Corners. This area was originally part of Orleans Place, so under my ownership, these two lands are once again reunited. And the land is now themed to sports and will be known as the Northern California Sports District. We're going to begin by addressing one of the newer rides in the park, Liberty Twirler. Despite this ride being so new, simply put, I will not be keeping it. That's that. Instead, this is where that bigger breakdance from Huss is going to go. It'll be themed to basketball and will be colored after the Golden State Warriors, Sacramento Kings, Santa Cruz Warriors, and Stockton Kings. As for a name, I went through a bunch of them before settling on one, and that name is going to be Buzzer Beater. Next up, let's fill in the gap left by the Condors. I've chosen to insert a Zamperla teacup right here, and I'm theming it after bowling. As a bowler myself, I personally wanted this. Each cup will actually be a cut-in-half bowling ball. The floor will be made to look like a bowling lane, and there will be a statue of a bowling ball and pins in the middle. This ride is called Bowling Bash. But that is not the only ride I have in mind to be themed to bowling. As I spoiled in part 1, I will be removing the Rip Roaring Rapids, so I've got all this open land to do with as I will. And this particular ride will be placed in this spot. It'll be a Huss top spin, and it'll be themed to the pin setting machine. Therefore, this ride's name is Pin Setter. We will talk about the replacement rides for Rip Roaring Rapids in just a second, but first, let's talk about the replacement ride for Orbit. This is where Celebration Swings will be moving to. In the process, it'll be losing its tent topper for a rounded dome, the seats will gain baseball coverings, and the whole ride will be painted to look as if it was a baseball. Its new name? Well, my friends, Curveball. Okay, so in part 1, I said I would be replacing the Rapids with a Batman clone, aka a recreation of the original B&M inverted coaster. But I came to realize that this ride doesn't quite fit onto the land the way that I want it to. So I've decided to scrap that idea and just go with a brand new layout. And for the record, yes, that does mean that Flight Deck will be leaving the park, and I've got a huge replacement coming in for it. But in the meantime, back over here, this new B&M invert would be called the Ninth Inning, and would be colored after the San Francisco Giants, and as long as they stay in Northern California, the Oakland Athletics. So the team, John Fisher. And there would be cameos from the Sacramento River Cats, the San Jose Giants, the Stockton Ports, the Oakland Ballers, and the YOLO High Wheelers. Okay, so that's all the rides in this section of the land, so let's move over and start talking about what would be replacing Flight Deck. I think it goes without saying that we have needed a huge coaster for a very long time, and I've chosen to put up a B&M Hyper Coaster here. This one will be themed to football, American football, of course. It will be colored after the San Francisco 49ers, with a cameo from the Bay Area Panthers and maybe this new indoor football team coming to Stockton named the Stockton Crusaders. And the ride is named Pass Rush. I even put together a little layout for this coaster. The station, in blue, would be almost in the exact same spot as Flight Deck, just a little bit behind it. The lift hill, in pink, goes around the Great America Pavilion, and then some highlights include close passage by the Cloud Tower, a helix around the big Digital Circus ride, and another helix near the end mimicking the current one on Flight Deck. I know I didn't note where brake runs would be in this graphic, but there would be one right by the amphitheater, and then of course one immediately exiting the helix, bringing us back into the station. For our next ride, you see this building here? I have no idea if it's used for anything. It's my assumption that it's not, so I would replace this building with a Larson Tilt-A-Whirl, themed to soccer, also known as football everywhere else in the world, and colored after the San Jose earthquakes, with cameos from the Oakland Roots, the Oakland Soul, and the Sacramento Republic. This ride is called Penalty Kicks. Real quickly, this end of the Skyliner would be called the District Skyliner. And so, with that being said, let's move next door and talk about our last actual ride, Rula Dodge, another 1976 OG. It's bumper cars, it's a classic ride, so of course, let's go ahead and keep them. Now they will be themed to hockey and colored after the San Jose Sharks and Barracuda. And the new name for this ride is Power Play. I do not see a reason to get rid of the amphitheater. In fact, I think it could still be used for smaller, big name shows, if you will, like say Kool and the Gang, War, Tower of Power. You get the idea, so the amphitheater will indeed be sticking around. As for the Great America Pavilion, however, I cannot say the same for it, for I have something bigger and better in mind for this area. And that, my friends, is the California's Golden Valley Museum. This building would showcase the entire history of the park, from the Marriott days up until now, featuring pictures, artifacts, and maybe even some scale models of rides and other attractions that have come and gone, like the Whizzer, Sky Whirl, Yankee Clipper, the original Loggers Run, the Edge, Demon. Yes, I've decided to get rid of the Demon and put up a B&M sitting coaster here. We got the Victorium, the Grizzly, the old cars from Barney Oldfield, some of the animals from the original Carousel Columbia, and so much more. This is my way of trying to preserve this park's rich history. Alrighty, and that is it for the Northern California Sports District. As a reminder, we now have a Huss Breakdance 5 called Buzzer Beater, Zamperla Teacups called Bowling Bash, a Huss Topspin called Pin Setter, Celebration Swings moves in and becomes Curveball, a new B&M invert called Ninth Inning comes in, replacing Rip Roaring Rapids, a B&M Hyper called Pass Rush replaces Flight Deck, a new Larson Tilt-A-Whirl called Penalty Kicks, Delta Flyer is now called the District Skyliner, Rula Dodge becomes Power Play, and the Great America Pavilion is replaced by the California's Golden Valley Museum. Okay, so I was just about to end the video right there, but then I remembered that I really haven't talked much about the East Bay Shores and what kind of new slides and attractions I would be putting in the area. So let's go ahead and do that right now. As a reminder, the entire water park is moving to the other side of the Screamin' Serpent. The entrance would be right about here, right around the current Barney Oldfield track, going underneath this current corkscrew, for the demon and into the land. So with that being said, let's start talking about what kind of slides I would put in here. Now all of these are going to be from Whitewater West unless otherwise noted. So let's see here. Oh, how about a funnel known as the Abyss, named after Half Moon Bay? How about a manta ride named after Monterey? A surf attraction named after Santa Cruz. You know, Santa Cruz, surfing, blah, blah, blah. We could use a multi-lane mat racing slide. I'd name it after Bodega Bay. How about this? A Mack water coaster named after Pacifica. And maybe I could also go with some other water-based rides as well, like, say, a Mack Twist and Splash. And I've actually got a really good name for this one. At least I think it's a good name. Alameda Aqua Assault. Is it good? Is it not? Let me know. I'm also thinking that a J&J Bumper Boats ride would be kind of cool here as well. And also, I should mention that, I talked about White Waterfalls a little bit, how a Gerstler polyp was going to take over it. I don't exactly want to get rid of White Waterfalls, so I'm thinking it's going to go into the water park. Now, for those of you questioning that move, let me tell you that Worlds of Fun has done that exact thing. They put their shoot-the-chutes inside their water park. So, it's been done before, and I think it would be a good fit in this land. And before I go, speaking of which, I've got one more idea that I want to get your opinion on. It involves rip-roaring rapids, for I am thinking about putting those rapids into the water park. What are your ideas? What are your thoughts on this idea? Let me know. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is officially a wrap on this entire video project. This has officially been If I Owned California's Great America. Now, I want to reiterate that I do not have the money, knowledge, or social status needed to pull the trigger. This is all a work of my theme park fantasy. I've had a dream ever since I was a kid to own my own theme park one day, but knowing that there is going to be a bunch of steps needed to even make that a reality, this is very likely going to remain a pipe dream for the rest of my life. It's sad, but I have to live with that. So anyways, thank you to everybody who watched every second of these two videos. It is highly appreciated, and I really hope you enjoyed every moment. If you did, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and also ring up the notification bell. And also, don't forget to check me out over on my other channel, Home Plate Drums. I upload videos every day. It's all drum covers, if you enjoy that stuff. So make sure you come on by Home Plate Drums. Make sure to subscribe and ring up that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. And also, all of my content is recorded while I am live on twitch.tv. So make sure to head over to Twitch and follow me over there as well. So, again, thank you so much, everybody. As I leave you today, always remember, stay safe and stay awesome. Take care, everybody.